Until around 2010, point-and-shoot cameras were a necessity. But now, they've been taken over by smartphone cameras. A lot of phones can shoot great pictures these days, and it's not even a complex process. It's as simple as this. What's even more interesting is that a lot of them come with a manual mode, which offers control over everything from ISO, shutter speed to focus and white balance. Well, this might be a great addition for some. For others, it might be just a little too complex to be of any use. If that's the case with you, then you've come to the right place. In this video, let's take a look at how you can use the manual mode to get the best shots possible. My name's Sundar, you're watching C4E Tech, and if you do end up finding this video useful and capturing some cool pictures, hit thumbs up, subscribe and that bell icon to get on the notification squad. So for demonstration purposes, we are going to be using the Honor 9i here. This happens to be a nice budget phone with manual controls. I'm going to be explaining you the basic terms before actually showing you how to get some cool shots like this. Excited? Stay tuned. Let's first get over with metering and exposure compensation. These decide the amount of light the sensor captures. There are three different metering modes. First is matrix, which divides the frame into multiple zones, analyzes the highlights and shadows of each zone, evaluates an average for all the zones to determine the overall exposure. This is helpful in evenly lit conditions, where no part of the scene is too bright or too dark, like this one. Next is center weighted. This mode gives weightage to the center of the frame and kinda ignores the corners. Makes sense if the subject is at the center. You want it to be exposed correctly. The third one is spot metering. This mode makes sure that the exact spot that you choose from the frame is exposed perfectly. If it's highlights, it doesn't look blown out. If it's shadows, it doesn't look too dark. The rest of the picture might be a mess though. It depends on the scene. Let's now talk about exposure value compensation, denoted by the EV button here right next to shutter speed. No matter how good your camera is, it does tend to slightly over or underexpose the image at times. So you can compensate for it by increasing or decreasing this value. This is nothing but the slider that appears once you tap to focus on auto mode, where you swipe up to increase the exposure or down to decrease it. While using these modes, you don't need to worry about the shutter speed or ISO. They're automatically set according to the metering mode or exposure compensation value that you choose. Now these may help you in improving the image quality, but not by a lot. What really makes a difference and lets you unleash all your creativity is the shutter speed setting. Basically, shutter speed is the amount of time the shutter stays open, meaning that's the amount of time the shutter lets the light in. So slower the shutter speed, longer the shutter stays open, more the amount of light striking the sensor, and consequently brighter the image, and vice versa. The unleashing your creativity part? I'll come to that in a bit. Let's talk ISO now. It's basically the sensor's sensitivity to light. A low value indicates that the sensitivity is low and there's minimal noise. As the value increases, the image gets brighter and noisier. Let's now consider some day-to-day scenes. Under good lighting conditions, there's enough light, so the shutter needs to stay open only for a fraction of a second, and the sensor needn't be too sensitive. These were shot using the Honor 9i. The images have shutter speed values ranging from 1/100th of a second and 1,000th of a second, and have very low ISO values, mostly less than 100. Whereas under low light, there's very less light hitting the sensor, so the shutter needs to stay open for a longer time, and the sensitivity needs to be high. For example, these low light images from the Honor 9i have a long shutter speed of 1/13th of a second and high ISO values ranging between 2000 and 3200. So I guess you now have an idea of where to do what. With that out of the way, let's get to the interesting part. You can play around with the manual mode by tweaking the shutter speed, setting it to 8 seconds and setting the ISO to 50, the bare minimum so as to reduce noise. I got this beautiful image. Here's the same scene shot on auto mode. See the difference? But wait, there's a caveat. You cannot hold a phone for 8 seconds without shaking it. Forget 8, it's difficult to hold it even for 1 second. No matter how hard you try to keep it stable, it's gonna shake slightly, and that's best case scenario. You need something like a mini tripod or a Gorilla Pod. Costs around 500 rupees, but totally worth it. I'll leave a link to the one we have in the description below. There is a way to overcome this limitation, but it doesn't work all the time. Times when I don't have a Gorilla Pod, but I'm in the mood to shoot some cool pictures, I'd do something like this. Rest the phone against the grill or against the wall. In fact, these pictures you're seeing right now, guess how I shot them? Have a look at it. You just gotta keep the phone super stable, shouldn't even move a centimeter away from the original position. As long as you make sure of that, things are gonna be fine. I'm sure there are more workarounds. If you can think of one or have used one in the past, let me know in the comments below. But yeah, like I said, often this doesn't work. You may not be able to find a workaround, like while trying to capture the beautiful night sky or a moving aircraft. Or this image. This one's easy. Just tap the shutter button, go stand in front of the camera, use your phone's torch and draw something. While this turned out well, in another attempt I tried to draw C4E only to fail miserably at it. But that's alright, it's all about the fun, right? There's a lot of room for creativity. Light streaks, moving clouds, and even a plain landscape. So, we are done with slow shutter. Now how about fast shutter? How could that render cool images? Well, while it isn't as fun as slow shutter, it is quite useful when it comes to certain situations like this. To capture those water droplets, the shutter speed needs to be as fast as possible, preferably less than 1,000th of a second. But that will probably make the image dark, right? So what are you supposed to do now? Easy, crank up the ISO. Basically, fast shutter speeds are useful when you want to capture fast-moving objects like moving vehicles or people. We also do have control over focus and white balance here. If you've taken macro shots, you probably would have faced this issue, where you just keep tapping on the subject and it just refuses to lock focus on it. Here you can just set the focus to the closest possible distance or wherever you want using the slider, and then move a bit until the subject comes into focus, and then click. White balance controls also come in handy, especially when you're shooting those long exposure low light pictures. The phone tends to mess up the white balance if left on auto. Here's an example. It's a bit too warm, right? There are also some presets here to balance the white point. But if you want to set the temperature yourself, this is where you do it. The result is a picture with much more accurate colors. So that's it, I guess. Hope you guys learned something new from this video. If you did, do show us some support by hitting that thumbs up button. And if you end up capturing some uber cool pictures on manual mode, do share them with us on Twitter at C4eTech. Also hit subscribe and that bell icon to get notified each time we upload a new video. Thank you so much for watching. This is Sundar from C4eTech, leaving for the moment. Have an amazing day.